What is the conclusion on how the questions come to life?
Well, you can elicit good questions by just asking for questions. Earth science data is a good stimulus. So science advances on this thin frontier. You can sort of imagine this amoeboid shape, and inside is what's known, which is finite, and outside is what's not known, which is infinite. And the place where you can actually do science is like right on that thin little membrane between the known on the inside and the unknown on the outside. And I envision this membrane as having sort of, protrusions and embayments. And, I think that in earth science happens to sit at a place right now where the boundary is relatively close to the lived experience of the lay audience. Why did dinosaurs go extinct? Or, how hot is the earth going to get by 2050? These are questions that are quite accessible. So I do feel as though it may be more possible to generate lots of good student questions in earth sciences than it is in other fields, but that's purely speculative. The study should be replicated in other fields to see how true that really is.
How can you teach the art of asking good questions?
It's hard to find a question that's worth researching. You have to ask question after question after question after question. And most questions, when you're trying to start an inquiry, it turns out most questions that occur to you, they're either questions that have already been answered, or they're questions that cannot yet be answered. So this boundary between the known and the unknown is a very thin membrane, and it's only in that very narrow zone where questions can actually be answered through the methods of science at this moment in time. You need a question that has not yet already been answered, and you need a question that is answerable given humanity's current knowledge and suite of tools. And so you need to just ask lots and lots of questions, and you need to expect that you're going to have to throw out most of the questions that you ask when you're looking for an inquiry. Most classrooms, teachers ask many questions and students ask few questions. Asking questions is a central practice of science. There has to be a mechanism for asking questions to be an expected part of the cultural norm of science classes for every student. But as far as helping students recognize what constitutes a good question or not a good question, I think they should realize that these please explain questions, they have to be asked. They shouldn't be something you should be ashamed of. You have to ask these please explain questions if you're going to engage in a substantial way with the data. But after that, then you want to work up to the next kinds of data. So the next kinds of questions are questions where you're seeing patterns or trends in the data and wondering what is the cause or what is the consequence of this pattern or trend. And then after that, you want to begin generating hypotheses about why is the Earth behaving with the attributes that I'm seeing in the data. And then after that, perhaps noticing or wondering why it is that the data does not appear to be matching the models that you've been taught of how the world is supposed to work. So students can learn that. They can learn that question asking is important. Question asking is a skill that can be improved through practice, and that there are different kinds of questions, and that as they begin to work their way into a new topic, they can ask more and more generative questions until finally they've got a question that sits on the boundary between the known and the unknown, and that is worthy of their attention as a young scientist.
What are these processes that happen in our mind, the cognitive processes that they come into play during the generation of these key questions? This is the most important question to me.
Yes, and I believe that is almost non-researched. So we looked for literature on this topic while we were doing the background for our paper, and we could not find much written at all on where do scientists get their questions from, approached from a sociological perspective or sort of a social science research perspective. There may be literature on that out there, but it's not particularly well known, at least to me. So what I had to go by in thinking about that is my own observation of excellent scientists around me. Lamont-Doherty is full of excellent scientists, so I got to watch lots of people. And I think one thing that's important is it has to be a question that you yourself find fascinating. I think that for many people, it's very helpful if it is a question that has the potential to do something good for humanity or society. And then after that, I would say a question that has the potential to open the door to a whole new category of inquiry.